So I'm going to be chatting. This is the very first of my new series called Creative Conversations. And I came up with this idea because so many of you are wonderfully creative, inspiring beings. And I wanted to have an opportunity to have a forum to chat with you and find out more about your creative side, about what inspires you, what motivates you, how you are operating your business. Because sharing that with us all in the group is going to be really useful. We're all in the same game. We're all creative mums. So first up, really kindly, Shannon Reed of Mockingbird Makes has agreed to be my first interviewee. I've been stalking Shannon a little while on Instagram, and I was really, really pleased that she said yes. I took my own advice again. I was really brave and reached out, because what was the worst that could happen? She could say, no, not now, I'm not really feeling it, which is fine. But amazingly, Shannon just said yes, and here we are. So, good morning, Shannon.
Good morning, Victoria. Thank you very much for having me. It felt very, very easy to say yes. I feel like this is me stepping into my world. So it's lovely to be here.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because people always and I probably on Instagram don't just message them out of the blue because it's a bit weird, but I just did it anyway. So here we are. It does work sometimes. Sometimes give it a go.
And then you remember that it's not quite out of the blue either, because when you're on Instagram and such, and you say a little hi there and a little comment there and a little oh me too there, you are actually building the relationship. So it doesn't feel like it's out of the blue, because we're going on with each other in the background, aren't we? So
yes, that's absolutely true. You're right. Okay, so let's dive right in. Tell me a bit about your background and how your business came about, and also what your business is, because everyone wants to know.
Thank you. I am a mum of two. I have a 13 and 9-year-old. And before children, I was an innovation consultant, which meant that I worked with organisations to help them come up with really, really breakthrough ideas. And what I loved about that was the nurturing of ourselves that we have to do to get ourselves in a position to come up with big ideas. Because when we're putting ideas in front of our boss or our staff, it doesn't matter who they are. When you're putting yourself ideas in front of other people, it's quite nerve-wracking. So we need to be really kind and supportive to ourselves. So that's a long story short. I loved that bit of it. When I had children, I could no longer, I didn't feel that international work like that could be my priority. Client-led, international facing heads of Coke and Unilever and all the rest of it. I hadn't been doing it long enough to feel like it was in my muscle memory, if you know what I mean. So it was not something that I wanted to step into when my attention was elsewhere as well. I also suffered or was made aware of my tendency towards depression and anxiety. I don't think that I was fine before children and then wasn't after. I don't think it was as cut and dried as that. I think before I had children, I had different methods of dealing with my times of being blue, being scared, and so on, and more space to do that. And when I had children, the needs are being drawn on me, you know, the responsibilities, the space wasn't there. So I began making, I mean, it's a little bit longer than that, but therapy. So I'm not going to pretend that creativity and making was my savior. My creativity was a savior on a ongoing day-to-day, moment by moment level. Therapy was the deeper level findings. And then the creativity helped me on a day-to-day level and was a beautiful vehicle for me to bring myself gently back out into the world. because all of my self-confidence went away. If I can't manage my mental health, then I'm no good and I'm not wanted anywhere, all those sorts of stories, which are absolutely not true, but they feel true at the time. So that was the crux of it. And I loved making things. And then someone said, I'll buy them off you. And I said, what? You mean like someone will pay me to keep doing this? Oh, okay. So I didn't go out and research the market. I just started making and followed my nose and slowly built up clients and customers and felt my way through it. And now I am a maker. I knit and I crochet and I make pom-poms. Pom-poms are my speciality. I mean, you know, I have to say, my first bank statement that came in with a payment that said rainbow unicorn, honestly, I've made it, really.
Yes, you're like, this is life goals. I am
life goals.
So I can see in the background just behind you some of your creates.
Yes.
Yep. So I think it's really interesting that you said that you didn't go out there and kind of market yourself. You just made, and your passion came from the making, not from the necessarily going out and doing that bit where we have to put ourselves out there. And I think that's just something that will resonate so much with so many other creative makers and doers, because we often come from that point of our passion is what leads us, and the other bits that we have to take on to make a business are the bits that often overwhelm us again. So it's really good to hear that's where you started and how you kind of started to grow. And the other thing I wanted to kind of highlight as well is that clearly you harnessed really quickly the power of growing organically. And this is something the rest of the members of the group will probably attest to, I've been banging on about for ages, that we have to kind of grow organically with people who are part of our tribe. We don't need to go out there and just collect a whole load of people and try and sell to them. And thank you for being a testament to that without even realizing what you were saying.
Oh, well, that's really lovely. And I think it's really important. There's something that I need to say about that, is that I also have had my husband being the major income earner. So often we go, well, that's not a possibility for me because I've got to bring the money in, right? Okay. So I had my husband as a major income earner, and if you didn't have that, how can you have the capital to get you by so that you're not feeling like I have to go into striving mode all the time to get there? So that's something to counteract that sort of idea there about.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. It's really, really important to mention that. Thank you for mentioning that. So go on and tell me a bit more about the bigger picture with your business. So what are you hoping to achieve with your business? What I'm all about, and how we exchange energy in the world. And one way I like to define what I do with my business is about the energy that I'm putting out and what energy I hope to get back. So tell me a bit about that, kind of, what's your big vision? What are you hoping for?
I'd like to say that I had a plan, and that I went, right, this is where I'm coming from, this is my strategy, and that is the opposite. It's like the inversion of that, and like I have gone all the way, what do I need? And I felt a bit shameful about that at times. It's like, I should be doing this, I should be doing this, I should be seeing what people need. I found it really, I still haven't properly done it, but I found it really hard to identify my ideal customer, because actually it's just I'm doing what I need to do. So I found it as I've gone along. I didn't sit back and wait until I'd found it. I just put one foot in front of the other to follow my nose, follow my intuition as to what I needed to do for that moment, not for my 5-year plan, but for that moment. And I think that's the nature of me coming out of changes in life circumstances, whether it's mental health changes, whether it's family circumstances changes, all the rest of it. But what I know now is that the energy that I want my business to send out is how we support ourselves in wellness. And I don't care if it's crochet, knitting, or anything like that at all. It is how we support ourselves in wellness. And this is something, yeah, it's totally taken me by surprise that I could feed in my heart into my business. I didn't think it would be possible. I didn't think that other people would respond to it. That's the thing. And yet that is our USP, right? Doesn't matter what you're doing. People buy from people. So our USP is what we're feeding into it. So I had to learn that I'm quite stubborn and very independent. So if you tell me something, I might try it, I might not, but it will be the experience that I have of it that counts.
And so true.
So my idea of energy and what I wanted to bring was that I'm using making for my mental health. It makes me feel amazing, and I want to share that with people.
Yeah. Do you know what? When what we do is about the energy that it creates around us, ourselves, it actually probably is the benefit of that is actually we do put energy back into the universe that we don't really plan for, because in some respects it's a byproduct, because it's like you said, you're doing the making for you. It's part of something that helps you get through the day. But the passion and the love and the intensity that goes into that, naturally the byproduct of that is this energy that you put out, this positivity and this kind of inclusiveness, and all of those things naturally attract other people. So it doesn't matter if the place we come from is that we're doing it for ourselves and for an inner reason. That's absolutely valid, because it still creates a bigger picture that other people can kind of tap into. So you explained it
back to us, and it's like, oh, I'm not alone, and I am a part of something, and so therefore I can generate some more, and it's giving to me while I'm giving to it. So it's like alchemy magic, sort of.
Absolutely. And it's all part of this big circle. So I massively resonate with that. People ask me quite often why I do what I do. And it's hard to put into words, because I do what I do because of how it makes me feel, which can come across a bit kind of self-centered, but that's not what it's about. So I'm glad that I have a fellow spirit out there who understands that too. Okay, so most of us in here are mums, and most of us are running our businesses, and part of what I'm trying to do is help people find a balance, and find what works for them. And it's not something I talk a lot about in terms of like strategies or techniques, because I think it's really personal to each person, because what your balance and right is not necessarily the same as somebody else's. But I do think there is some value in us sharing what we do and how we juggle, because it helps inspire others. So tell me a bit then about how you get the balance right. How do you find the time to get your creative juices flowing, and how do you find the time to kind of allow yourself to be in that space that you need to be being creative?
I don't have the final answer yet, so it's a which that's part of the point, though. As you say, it's not a one size fits all, and so if we chunk down to the details of something, we might not get fits. But if we chunk up to the why and wherefore and how we're trying to do it, then we can make connections with it. So first of all, I have listened to a few people, and it's really resonated with me to change the word from balance to harmony, so that not balance infers that every day will be so much percentage of this, so much percentage of this, and we've balanced our day. It might be that there are lots of orders on that day, that week, that month. December comes, if we're makers, if that's a busy time of our year. If we're fitness people, January is going to be that, the different times. And so we harmony, I think, is something more to aim for, where there'll be work then, but then we make sure we rest when we can, and we rest really well, and we know ourselves really well, so we know what optimum rest is for us. But also, so in meditation, they say, if you're busy, meditate more, because you need more of that support. Routines feature high in my day for myself, and not in my when the family's around. I get up really early now, and I journal and I meditate and I exercise, and that holds me really, really steady for the rest of the day, because I've filled my cup. I've been doing that for nearly a year now, and that's been a game changer for me, for my mental health, for my productivity, for my sense of being okay with my lack of productivity, for all of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm really good at focusing on the children and being present for them, and then there's other times when I'm really anxious about my work and I feel like I haven't spoken to them to ages. But then I just go, where is the harmony there? I remember when I was weaning my eldest child, and random, no, wait for it. And sitting down to a meal, and the meal that I made them, they didn't like it. And I'm thinking, I need to get these vegetables in, I need to get this in. And I spoke to a friend of mine who had a nutrition background, and she said, stop thinking about the meal. Stop even thinking about what they've had in the day. Think about what they have had over the week, and get more into the rhythm of human rhythm rather than robot machine rhythm. What is that cycle of eating? Over the week, a child left to its own devices more than likely will cover all the bases. It just might not be on the day, right?
Yeah.
And as women, we will have times of the month, times of the year, times of the decade where we are more driven, less driven, and if we can tune into those things, then we will have a much easier time pushing against them.
Yeah.
Okay. So my way of getting balance in my life is self-compassion, because it's a superpower. That's it.
Amazing. You're absolutely right. And that's really inspiring. And I think that might be my word for the next couple of days, is harmony, because you're so right. Balance can be quite black and white, and so thinking of it as much more of a harmony and seeing the bigger picture, that's such a really important piece of advice. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure that's
been a very, very big long learning for me.
Of course, like lots of these things, when we're learning about our own heart, it takes time. It doesn't take minutes, seconds. It takes a long time, but that hopefully that's been really inspiring for other people too. Just remember to think about the bigger picture, and I will definitely try to remember that when my youngest is insisting that all he wants to eat is tuna sandwiches.
Yes.
That,
It's a big old long life we've got. It's a big old long life.
So, creatively speaking, what or who inspires you? Your work is, you really have to, hopefully you've got some to hand at the end just so you can show us a few examples, but it's quite unique and I think it's quite a unique style to you. But what has a creative energy? What inspires you, or who inspires you?
It's always a really hard question, because I see things, I don't think of myself as having a style, and yet I do. So when someone did a review about me and said that my products were sunshine in product form, I went, oh, okay, yes, it's bright. It's not, I mean, this one here happens to be quite cute, but that's my son's edition. The colour, simplicity of form. When it comes to my plants, realistic is my go-to. So whenever I see anything like that, I will remember it, I will see it, When I need to think about creative inspiration, though, is when I get stuck, I need to step away. So one of the things that I always make sure that I have is my own passion project. So now I've turned my passion has turned into my work. And
Your passion has turned into profit.
And I think it's a really big subject, because if you don't replace that passion for passion's sake, what else have you got? You've given it to your work, potentially. So yeah. I always make sure that I have a passion project that is not for any customer, that is not for anybody. And it might even not be practical. It's not for anything other than the fun of it. Absolutely carefree fun of it. So what happens, though, is then I'll share them on Instagram and people love them, and they become my biggest sellers. And that's okay, because I don't share them until I'm finished with them, as in not finished making, but finished with the process of having it to myself, having it just for me, having no agenda, and so on. Yeah. So boundaries like that. Yeah. So there's the oxymoron of the processes for creativity. They seem to be opposite things, but it's really, really important to have boundaries, to have awareness, like conscious awareness of how we want to be creative and put it into practice, and make notes on what works for us and so on. I think it's really, really valuable.
Yeah, and I think that would have been really valuable tips to some of our makers out there who just have something that you hold back. And I think that's really important, actually, in so many aspects of life, is having something that you hold back, especially with the current climb of social media being there and kind of everybody sharing every inch of what they do. Having something you hold back for you, it really gives you a space to be in. Yeah, really important. Okay, so so for me, being a business coach who helps mums running a creative business, my kind of tagline is that I take women from feeling stressed to success. So I'm always interested in hearing what success means for other people, because I use that word, but it means so much to so many people. So for you, what does success mean?
I really love that you have the end part of that question in terms of what does success mean, rather than just how do you become successful. Because that would have been my first thing.
Success is relative to everybody, and it's not an end goal that looks a certain way that you can tick a box. That's why I'm really intrigued by it, and I ask everybody I meet, what does it mean to you?
It's very early on, when I was quite insecure about what I was doing, that whoever heard of making money out of knitting and crochet, because that's just what old people do, right? That's my story, okay? Judgment all over the place. And a gentleman came up to me and said, "Oh, how much profit's in that then?" And it it's like I had a big button on my forehead that he just went whack against. And so being pushed into the corner of where I didn't want to be, I got to answer my own question. And I said, I think I'm measuring this more out of success than profit. And that's really valid to me. And so success on a fundamental level is, how am I feeling? Because this is important. It's been a question in my life. That is first and foremost, and it's something I always come back to and will always put at number one priority. And then, how my family feeling, and how is this, and so on, like that. And then, am I stretching myself enough? Am I staying safe? What am I doing when I'm playing with this? I'm pushing in that direction. How does that work? Pushing in this direction. I'm pushing in all of the directions. Oh, it's too much. I can't see it. Okay, all right. Calm back down again. So yeah, some months success is that lovely monthly figure that I'm celebrating. That's the best one ever. And then others are like, I'm really proud of myself because I said no to those things. It's what it needs to be for me.
Yeah. No, that summed up really nicely. That success is how you feel. It's a feeling to you, and that's exactly how I understand success to be as well. For me, it's about how I feel. Some things which, from an outside world looking in, would be like that wasn't successful, but for me, it made me feel a way which I would attribute to success. So I would be like, this was majorly successful, but it didn't earn me a penny, or but it, for me, the success is in the feeling. So,
and equally, that earned me a lot of money, and I'm exhausted. I haven't seen my kids for ages. I get really stressed beforehand and afterwards. That's not success.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, it all comes back down to that boundaries and harmony again, doesn't it? And seeing them all as a bigger picture. Yeah. I'm loving this conversation, Shannon. So you kind of touched on it in the beginning, talking about your kind of project and something that you've been drawn towards, this idea of creativity for wellness. And I'm really, really interested to hear more about this, because over here, I know you're in London, over here in Hampshire, there's not a great amount of this that goes on. So I do know of members in our group who use art journaling as a method of working with teenagers. And I know we've got a couple of glass artists who are looking at using that kind of glass art in corporate companies to help with mental health issues. So it's going to be really useful to hear about what you've been doing, how you've been setting it up, and what your kind of vision is with this. So tell all.
It's something that I'm really, really passionate about. When I started being creative, I had to give myself a lot of permission, because the story that I heard from the world was that creativity was not a valid thing to do unless you'd already earned the money, put your time in, whatever. You've done the hardship first and then you can play. This is the thing. We know that children learn through play. We don't know so well that humans learn through play. That is still a thing. And my soapbox, after having the experience of not allowing myself creativity in my life or thinking that it's valid, is that I had cut out a part of myself. So we are all born creative. We are innately creative. At one extreme, if we don't use it, it can be destructive creativity. So we need to express it in some way or another. And if we could be destructive, or we could be pressing it down. And when you press things down within yourself, you don't get to choose which thing you press down. It's just a press down of everything. So that's depression. That is the pressing down. We're not fully living who we are. We are not at all living who we are. We don't get to select the feelings that we push away. So I really felt like we outsource our creativity too easily, believing that only painters, good painters, experts, artists with a degree, who've gone to university, have done all the training, who've lived on bread and water for 20 years, whatever our idea of creativity is, are valid in practicing creativity. So to reconnect people is really important to me. And the first iteration of that for me was working bespoke with people. So here is an example of a bespoke work. I had a pretty tough client with this one, I have to say. We had to rearrange the clouds a few times to get it just right, but he got to express his own creativity without the skills of making. So he got to see his vision come to life. Yeah. And when you get to experience that, you notice how we open up, how we expand when that is happening. And I was expanding with my expression of my creativity. So when I got people to design their own hats, design their own plants, design their own, now rainbows at the moment, then just that, oh, I've created something. I didn't necessarily create it, but I have seen my vision come to life. And so that is what I wanted to do, give people that experience of how it makes them feel. And then that might give them a doorway into how they could do that a bit more for themselves and stop saying I'm not creative, because it's just not true.
Yeah.
And then teaching knitting, crochet, and pom-pom making. I've done a lot more pom-pom making than either of the other two, and I just can't believe that I'm saying that. I can't believe that I have pom-poms in my life, and they...
Why wouldn't you, though? Why wouldn't you have pom-poms in your life?
I mean, I know.
You know, that's more of an alarm to me. If someone doesn't have any pom-poms in their life, there's a big question there.
You know, I'm a New Zealander. I come from New Zealand. I was brought up on a farm that was 15 minutes outside of a town of 5,000 people. So rural is the word. Practicality is the key word. Efficiency is the key word. Not much time for fluff. So for me to come from there to... You
weren't on a sheep farm then?
Not ours. No, we had cows, but so no fluff. Maybe that was the yearning. I wasn't the stereotypical Kiwi with the sheep. I needed to get wool in some other way. So for me, that's a big journey. So that's a huge success, you know, because it's such a big leap for me to come from and to give myself that permission. So pom-pom making, going to festivals, teaching people how to make pom-poms, seeing their delight from all ages. People just come alive every single time. It's that feedback loop. It's that I can give you a bit of energy to get into this, and then you can pick up that energy and you can be delighted with what you've created. I also use them in working with small businesses to have a look at how they think about their own creativity. So I've gone in and given a bit of a talk that I give on creativity for wellness, then ask them to make a pom-pom, and as they're doing that, notice themselves as they go through that process. Are they saying, shush, don't tell me anymore, I want to figure it out myself? Are they saying, is this right? Is this right? Is this right? How do you feel with something new that you have to problem solve, and so on? And then how do you feel at the end? And having the very short and not very challenging experience way of doing it, but as a metaphor for how you deal with your own creativity, because all of our businesses need us to be creative and flexible.
Yeah.
We just, you know, that's a key part of it.
Yeah.
Regardless of what the job is, whether we're a bookkeeper or whatever, we still have to be incredibly creative in the right ways, I guess. And so that is incredibly rewarding. And then I speak at a lot of mental health events, telling my story and sharing and listening to other people's story and removing the stigma from talking about mental health and supporting us in this way. And the biggest thing that I've been through lockdown, I have been talking with local not local actually anymore because it's virtual, so WIs across the country, about my talk about keeping ourselves safe and valuing our creativity and using it to support ourselves, because making is very meditative and takes us into a similar state of soothing. When we make with our hands, it is even more effective than just thinking ourselves into a relaxed state. So when our hands are involved, it's more engaging. So the making part of it brings in a different level that soothes our sympathetic nervous system, which is fight or flight, into parasympathetic, whereas rest and digest, and goodness knows we've got a lot to digest at the moment. So being in that state as much as we can is really important. I'm not, talking to WIs, I'm not teaching people a lot that they don't already know. I just want them to know that it's valid. I just want them to know.
Yeah, we need to hear it from other people sometimes to give ourselves permission to really hear it. I think that's such an amazing thing that you're doing, and such inspiring really as well, and something for us all as a creative community to be thinking about how we can feed into helping this bigger cause overall, really. So watch this space, because I'd love to get you down here to Hampshire and doing some pom-pom making with us.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Obviously, once we're allowed to leave our own house again, you know.
Yep.
So let's end this with sharing a top tip with us for mums running creative businesses. What would be your kind of top tip? Your kind of, if you could only say one thing to somebody, what would it be?
I think I gave it away. Self-compassion is a superpower. How can you work every day on being a little bit kinder to yourself? Willpower will take you so far, and that's great. And if you've got an intrinsic motivation for doing what you're doing, it'll take you even further. But when we get hit up against something, when we are tired, when we have pushed ourselves too far, whatever, self-compassion will take us all the way through, because we can be kinder, we can rest, we can get back up again. When we make a mistake that we are able to learn from, we can embrace that rather than being scared of it. And then it gives other people permission to be the same. When we're modeling that self-compassion, it's not the words that we say, the actions that people will model will happen. And when we're doing that, it's just a win-win for everybody. And I just find my world is becoming softer with less harder edges, and then, working in lockdown, we're like, oh, sorry about that. That's my boy doing his homework behind the screen. And we've got a bit of a knocking about that, but it's fine, because we're all being more understanding. So keep going with that flow. Keep going with what have we had to adjust to, and be flexible and forgive ourselves for. Use that as a feeling. So it's a feeling that you've had over this time. What have I had to be more forgiving of? Use that as a template for how could I do that on purpose, not just because of this reason. And actually it's a valid thing to do.
Absolutely. I think lockdown, hopefully, I think has changed our world in very different ways drastically, but that we don't want to repeat. But also I'm hoping that we actually don't go back to the old normal in some respects. The new normal is the way forward. And giving ourselves just time, I think, as well, just realizing that it's okay to take time and to do things in a slower way. Definitely.
That time thing is so important. I know that it's a theoretical understanding, but once we get the physical understanding of, actually, I took my time and I was more productive, when we can experience that, then as I said, I won't be told. I am stubborn. I need to experience it for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think you're right. And I think this is a perfect opportunity for us to allow ourselves to experience something that in the old world we might not have. We might have kind of pushed away because of time and because of busyness and because of expectation on people who could see us in the outside world. So you have left me with so much to think about. I feel absolutely inspired by this. Do pop your question in the comments, and if you want to see more and more and more of Shannon's amazing creations, go and check her out on Instagram, Mockingbird Makes. She has some gorgeous stuff on there. So thank you for your time, and I will let you get back on with the rest of your day. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thank you, Victoria, so much for having me and for creating this really amazing